Welcome everyone to the Vermin Sermon. Today is our coronavirus special. We're gonna try to talk about the information that came out about the new consoles, a pre-race cutscene concept that JLF made. It will be linked somewhere in the description for Forza, and then also if EA will eventually go back to making decent games and sort of reestablish its reputation that it had in the mid 2000s and earlier, and as well as that, how important a soundtrack is to a game's experience. So, I think because it is the big topic that people are, I guess, would in theory be most interested about, the new consoles, I think specifications for the Series X came out, and then there was also a video presentation by Sony on stuff about the PS5. And I want to say really quick, a lot of people were disappointed that it didn't really show anything about games. But the thing is, they never said they were going to show off any games. I just don't get it. Like, okay, I understand if it's not a good marketing strategy, if it doesn't, get people excited to buy their system. But that's not really. I can see that point, but I still don't understand how so many people were so upset at them as if they did something on purpose that was misleading or deceitful. But that's just what I'm going to say. So what do you guys have to say, I guess, about new consoles?
No, next to nothing about it. I've been busy with so much other shit. I
Yeah,
feel like I literally have not seen it. Funny
yes.
enough, like this has been like probably the first 4 days consecutively I've actually been just sat down in the house, like doing
Yep.
nothing in the house. Other shit was like visiting family, like could blah blah blah. I'm really interested. What are the specs? I'm gonna look up this thing actually.
Yeah, I'm gonna put them up somewhere. The one
For
of the
the fact
highlights.
that
Go ahead.
Xbox Series X specs, because what's surprising about this is I've always seen it as like, oh, this is just a PC tower console,
Yeah,
desktop. I
fairly.
wonder what's on this. Ooh,
Okay, I found some articles showing off specifications. I think the CPUs are fairly similar. Hold on a second. Um, let's see right here. The Xbox CPU is a little bit faster. They're both uh 8 core CPUs. They're based off of AMD's second generation Zen architecture, I think. There's some information. The GPU in the Series X is also faster. Uh, RAM looks pretty much the same.
hmm,
The Xbox does have a bigger SSD, so it's for sure the Series X is gonna cost more than the PlayStation 5
hmm,
unless some magic happens. Um, but obviously, it has also come out that Microsoft, they're gonna release a cheaper model, so that'll be a bit less powerful. Again, I'm extremely hoping that it just has a worse GPU. Its CPU and RAM and other things are left the exact same, so that instead of having a compromise in gameplay experience, we'll just have a compromise in graphics, which I think is
graphics, yeah.
acceptable. Yeah, because like games, if they come out straight off the bat and like an open world game that you would normally expect to be 1080p 30 is now 4K 60, right? If you have a really scaled down version that's 1080p 60 on the cheaper Xbox, that's completely fine, I think, because then yeah,
Yeah, but
you'll it won't.
key thing is how does it run?
Yeah,
That's literally all that matters. Does it
yeah,
run smooth? I,
you know,
I don't particularly care about the graphics that much.
yeah,
Honestly, I think in terms of performance, you can't really compare them with stuff like teraflops. I think
yeah,
because of the way this architecture is now, you'll have to just wait and see in terms of gameplay. Because, like for instance, the Series S has more powerful GPU in terms of teraflops, but it's got lower clocks GPU. But then again, these things that don't really matter. Like you can't really compare architectures in the way in terms of performance in terms of teraflops. Like now, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Like
No,
you can have a 1080 Ti that's only got like 11 teraflops, but it gets shaft. But it shafts like a Vega 56, which only came out like I mean, there's Vega 64, which was high end like 2 years ago or something,
Mhm.
and this is older. So it's just one of those weird things you can't see.
Yeah,
But
no, I
something with
completely agree. It's I think it's really just a buzzword. It's something that people put out
Yeah.
there so that you can compare
It's
it,
cool.
and it's a smart marketing strategy because when you already have a dedicated fan base of like brain deads, they'll just go start arguing and fighting each other, and like you'll see like the laughing, crying emojis and like, oh, all the Xbots are when they find out about the PS5 specs, and then you'll see the exact same thing except changed, in like the opposite situations. It's
No, it's
ridiculous.
literally the same
it's divide
Yeah,
person.
and conquer,
it's the
literally.
You're the same person. But
yeah,
that's the thing. Like, I'm surprised. Like, we all play video games at this point. Like,
yeah.
why?
I don't
Like,
understand.
the only thing I don't like about like different consoles and platforms is that we can't. There's no multi-platform. It's
Yeah,
universal.
crossplay
Yeah,
should
but that's
definitely
just
be a thing.
consumerism. That's
Yeah,
just
that is
consumerism.
the thing we need. God.
Also, one thing I do like with Sony, they are going to give the option to upgrade with the standard M2 SSD
Hmm.
compared to the Xbox Series X where they're using their proprietary shit. So it's
Yeah,
going to be a
that's
lot more
true.
expensive. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I saw online that apparently the 1 terabyte SSD USB thing is going to be $250. So, and an
Yeah,
M2
the
SSD you can get for like a terabyte
yeah,
from like
the
Amazon.
Xbox Series X, it has a weird port on the back of the unit, and you have this little expandable storage kind of extra external SSD thing. It's proprietary. I get that. I think it's actually kind of cool that you do have expandable storage in that way, but I guess for Sony's case, it's also cool that you can directly upgrade. But you'd also have to like install the operating system on it and whatever. That's not a huge deal. But like it's Xbox's situation is definitely more user friendly. Like you just buy a thing and you just plug it in, you know.
Yeah.
So I see that because like it's a different demographic. Like I could see someone who's like a PC gamer and they have a PS5 like willing to uh, install the operating system onto an NVMe SSD before installing it into their PS5. But I don't see like the same for just the average person who just has a PS5. You know what I'm saying?
Most people will be like, "What the hell did you just say?"
Yeah. So
Yeah, they'll be like, "Uh-huh."
um, I want to
Plug and
say,
play. The little definition of plug and play.
yeah, one thing that concerns me as someone who wants to stick with my PC is how fast the SSDs are, and I'm gonna explain. When you're developing a game, you want to make as many sales as possible. And what that means is you're going to create your game so that it runs on consoles first, pretty much, and then you're going to think about how it works on a PC. The big name games. Obviously there are going to be PC exclusives here and there, like you don't have Gary's mod on PS5 whatever, but you get what I'm saying. Rockstar is going to focus on how GTA plays on consoles before they do PC, and that's why their PC releases are always later. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just how it is. It's how you drive that kind of aspect of the business. Here's the thing, um, with how quick the speeds are on both the PS5 and the Series X, we can expect game design to change based off of that. And we actually saw a little bit of that in the PS5 kind of architecture unveiling video and or whatever it was. They were talking about how in the PS2 era on Jack 2, I think, they had this complicated sort of web of paths that you had to take in a certain area of the game just so that it
Yeah.
had enough time to load the next part. So obviously we're not going to have that. But does that mean, you know, when I buy a game that's out for the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and it makes use of the fast SSDs, am I going to play it on my computer and then it's going to hitch every 5 seconds because it has to load stuff? Or is it just not going to be possible? Do I have to actually go out and buy an NVMe SSD to store games? So
I
that's
think
something I'm thinking
That
about.
is a good point.
I think they're just making it out for consoles because consoles are piss poor. They have those shitty Jaguar cores for 7th gen that we use for low power laptops, and somehow it got way into a games console. So I think they're just making it so a big problem, a big issue with all the loading bullshit. But I think it'll be right on PCs because they're a lot more faster still. Like you can have like a 6700K, which is a bit old but still really fast. And even with the PS5 kind of things, they'll still be really good. If that makes sense. And the retards who are arguing about this is stupid because it's gonna make gaming better overall for everyone. If you think about it, we ain't gonna be hiccuped. We're not gonna have like graphic downgrades a la Watch Dogs and even you could say GTA 5 in some respects. And even GTA IV apparently like was downgraded and never had the outskirts of like New York City, whatever you want to call it, like the way GTA 5 has it with the forest and things because of the Xbox 360. So
if we're talking about downgrades, Division, that went from like one of the best looking games we ever seen in history to like, okay, this is like subpar.
To be fair,
it's fun what it was, but yeah, it was fun, but it's just like, holy shit, the downgrade of like graphical downgrades was insane.
And the map was like made.
Oh yeah, it was fucking Titanic at first, and now it's like, okay, it used to be like nearly 1-to-1 in New York, like what they said, and I was like, oh shit, this is so fucking small.
Yeah, but I see what you're saying about CPUs and graphics processing and everything. But
I think PC gamers will be fine then, like in the long run. But it's probably better to upgrade anyway because hard drives are going to be irrelevant when SSD prices go down.
Yeah, but the fact remains that if games are designed around this technology, then that means that it's going to be a significant issue, or at least that's what I'm getting. If they're going to design games from the ground up to use how quickly you can load assets, if it's not just how quick a loading screen is, if everything is seamless, then that means that it won't be seamless on PC. They have to either redesign the game, implement loading screens, or you're just walking in and you just have to wait for a while for everything to load, and then as you keep walking
I kind of disagree in having that stance right now because we haven't seen it.
That's true. We haven't really seen any.
And it's too early. But we don't know F4 except for the specs, which obviously could translate a lot different to actual use case.
Mm-hmm. And I already see some downsides. You know, if you want an external hard drive for storing games on like a PlayStation, well, you're not really going to be able to do that. I think they mentioned something about how you can do that, but as a sort of you download the game, you store it there, but then it transfers to the SSD while you're playing it, because it would require to use faster speeds. I don't fully know how that works necessarily, but maybe I read that wrong or interpreted incorrectly. In any case,
it's a bit of a catch-22 because like SSDs are quite expensive, relatively talking, even with the massive discounts to have them buying in bulk. So they had to cut back down on something to make it low. Otherwise, it'd be a few grand. Considering like a normal SSD for consuming like an NVMe one, but decent ones like 150. So it's weird cutting corners. But one stupid thing I don't know what Sony did: 825 gig. Like that's some stupid number. Who thought of that? That's making no sense.
That's ridiculous.
And then you have to have the software on top, so it's not going to even be that.
Yeah. You're going to be able to store like maybe 5 games, like 4 or 5 big games, and then that's it. Games are already hitting like the past 100 gig, sometimes 150 gig mark.
Isn't the new COD like near 200 or something?
I have no idea. I would not be surprised if that's the case. I'm going to look up really briefly how much it costs to actually produce an SSD. Because it could be the case that what happens is that SSDs are so expensive because of profit margins. Because I have this sneaking suspicion, and it's not based off of any factual evidence, but maybe because of the fact that SSDs are called different things and they use different technology, they can kind of fool the consumer into thinking that it requires that much more money. Whereas what if it doesn't actually cost that much more money, but you can charge a higher profit margin because there isn't that much information about them out there? Does that make any sense? That's kind of like a weird conspiracy theory type thing, but that's not what I'm going for. But
To be fair, they kind of did the same with RAM a few years ago when the big consumers, Samsung included, like colluded to make RAM be expensive. But that's not the same thing. That's just it's capitalism in that case, isn't it? Unfortunately, we're not living in the CCP again anymore.
yeah,
But,
I
yeah.
guess.
So yeah, it's one of those weird topics, but when you get down to it, it's not that deep. Like with console wars and stuff, it's stupid. You're not like a little
Yep.
kid anymore. It's literally just a different computer.
Yeah,
No,
pretty
no,
much.
not even just that. You're like some of these people, bro. You are older than me, whole grown man with children.
It's a little
And
terrifying
if I'd be
sometimes.
you, I'd be like, Daddy, what are you doing? As you're arguing on the internet with like a literal 13-year-old, probably just about as old as your kid. You can't, you're a fucking loser.
Oh my gosh.
Bro, the argument over consoles in 2020 is crazy.
Yeah, it is.
I
The
really thought we got over that shit back at like the height of that
Here's the
console war
thing,
back in like the 2010s.
we as a failed species never will.
Oh, we're scum.
We never have and never will. Like you go back to the
Dickheads,
to the
yeah.
90s, the 80s, and like when it was basically it was big on Sega versus Nintendo. Like that was kind of
Oh,
the
we
big
can
one.
go back. We can go back to like the 50s in the states of white versus black. It's
Okay.
always been a versus.
Okay.
It's
Alrighty
always been a
then.
versus.
That was
It's
not what
always
I
been
was
a versus.
expecting.
Hey, let me put it this way: we will always find something to beef over, no matter how
Yes.
fucking trivial it is. That's not
Yes.
trivial. But here's the thing: video game consoles, as you said, are a necessity. Well, why are you arguing over it? Because I bet you mad people have been in actual fist fights over their consoles. Like they don't give a fuck about you, bro. You just buy the shit.
Talking
Yeah.
about stupid game things, can I say?
Wait, why is that a brand loyalty? Why is that? It's weird. Because I remember it's like how Cam said about with like the loyalty to Ghost. It's like, where does
Yeah.
this come from?
Anyway, what were you saying, Soul?
I said, do you want me to go off topic slightly? It's still to do with games, but slightly
Okay.
off topic. Then back to whatever the next topic is.
Yeah, go for it. Go
So
for it.
basically, obviously, with this virus that that people can't say on YouTube, I'm gonna say anyway, COVID, unfortunately.
Dude, this would never get monetized in the history of the
the
universe. You can say it. It's all good.
Modelo infection.
So,
Alright,
so,
go
so
ahead.
basically, you must know that like most shops are closing down, especially like non-essential ones. But apparently, what I've heard, GameStop in America, they say that it's a necessary thing, and keeping themselves open, and internal documents and a voice chat between employees and the top people. And we're forcing them to stay open and say, "Fuck it, you have to do it. We're essential. Even if someone gets sick or whatever, we don't give a shit." And it just shows what kind of weird society we're in, and it
Yeah.
kind of
No,
links
to be
back
fair-
to the stupid stuff like the console wars, and just makes me think, what's going on?
That's the thing about GameStop is like, who gives a fuck about GameStop anymore at this point? We literally had a conversation about them, right? With the boys, how like I remember
Yeah, I
going
remember
in
now.
as like an 11-year-old with like all these 360 games, and they're like, "Oh, we'll give you $5," and I straight went, and just left. What the fuck? It was like they
Classic.
sold all those games individually, like over time, like on like marketplaces. I got like $110. They were gonna give me 5. They
5.
tried to give my boy $100 for
Oh,
his
man.
PS4, like bro, and he was like, "What?" Bro, fuck GameStop.
Yeah.
And like, first of all, bro, if you work here, you're in the sunken place. Please escape.
And the sad
You're-
thing is
you're-
that the higher the
in
Nintendo
jail.
from America, that guy Reggie Fils-Aimé, which is like just a waste of time in my opinion. And
Oh
it's
yeah,
kind of-
the Nintendo guy.
Hey,
was
Reggie!
the
Shut up! What
what is
happened
it?
to him?
President
From
of
us, he's
Nintendo of
a
America.
pretty decent guy, but I don't get why the waste of the time, because the company will probably finish in the next few years.
I don't know. I really don't know why he joined GameStop, but whatever. He can do what he wants. And also, if you
Yeah.
want to get deep really, really quick for an aside, okay, what you were talking about, console wars and GameStop trying to stay open and everything, nothing's new under the sun. People are trash. I think it's like
Yeah.
a postmodernist a philosophy fallacy
No,
that human beings are
hell no.
decent on a base level.
Yo,
I think that's a fallacy. I don't want to keep going in on this. That's not what this is for.
yeah, no, I was saying like not even postmodernist. We can go back to like the dawn of time. We've always just been kind of picky.
Yeah, no. I mean, in postmodernist philosophy, the
Yeah,
idea is out there. Actually, not even
yeah, the
postmodernist.
concept.
If you
Before it
want
was
to
like,
actually
hey,
look
we
at
good.
it, yeah,
Let's
if you
go
want to
and wreck
actually
this
look at
village.
it, in the Renaissance, people thought that through learning more about science and the world and through
Oh, I know
arts and
this.
other things, man can perfect himself or reach perfection
Yeah,
by bettering himself.
it's like this the
Yeah, I'm
nonsense.
not gonna go into this.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
there
no,
you
we
go.
don't have to.
Yeah,
That's what we need.
that's not what this
Taste
is
it.
for. Hey,
Yeah.
maybe we'll have a
The
nah.
philosophy
We'll have a
after the
random
after
section.
podcast for Vermin Sermon.
Yeah. All right. Let's get back to it. I want to say about the SSD speeds of the next gen consoles. I think a best case scenario, exclusive games will use the speeds to the best of its ability. So games on it will load really fast or have sections or game design. As you're going through a level, you would have to have something that fast in order to actually play the game. But for multi-plat games, I really hope that it's not a huge requirement so that I didn't waste money on a 3 terabyte hard drive when I got it years ago. I still have like 1.5 terabytes of storage left on my computer, so it would be pretty annoying if basically all that goes away and then I have to buy an NVMe. That would be ridiculous. Like, it's still absurd to me to store games on an NVMe. Like, to me, it makes sense if you have like a 256 or so for Windows, like as a boot drive, or maybe a 1 terabyte NVMe, so you have Windows and then some games on it, like a few ones that you play often, and then hard drive or whatever. But the thing is, as cheap as SSDs are getting, hard drives are still ridiculously cheap, insanely cheap. It's like $60 where I live for a 3 terabyte external hard drive, or not external, but a normal hard drive. $60, right? For 3 terabytes of SSD storage, that'll cost at least like 200 or something like that. I appreciate that SSDs are cheaper, and I think they're worth it for boot drives, and or if you have a decent sized one, but that not overwhelmingly large, so that you store a few games that you play on it. But the thing is, I just really hope that my hard drive didn't go to waste, and I don't have to spend money on an NVMe. So yeah, I really hope that's not going to happen. That's all I got to say about that. Anything you guys want to add before we
I
move on?
think
Hmm.
I think a normal SATA SSD would be fine because that's what I'm running for all my games. Because it's still relatively fast anyway.
Yeah.
So maybe you could get that instead.
Well,
But
I mean, like,
I don't know.
I do have a SATA SSD as a boot drive for Windows, and I was considering an NVMe for a boot drive. Although there wouldn't be a massive difference between a SATA SSD and an NVMe. Not in terms of numbers, like, yeah, read and write speed is way faster. But what I'm saying is,
It's
as a
only load
boot
times,
drive,
man. That's it, to be honest. And also,
yeah,
it's not like the sound of them, man.
yeah. But
Still,
I'm still perfectly fine. I think I have one game installed on my SSD, and then I have a bunch of like programs and stuff. Like, I think I have Vegas, and I have other things that I would assume would work better on a faster storage device. But then I have a lot of like almost every other game I have is on my external hard drive. Not external, sorry, internal hard drive, 3 terabyte one. But yeah, I just think it's absurd to store games on an NVMe. But hey, that's me saying this in this year. Years from now, years and years from now, like, it'll be a joke to have to still be having games on an NVMe SSD when you have them on the Vortex Physics Particle Manipulator Storage Device 3000 that just loads games instantly. You know? So,
shout out to Zorgon Industries, man.
it's Zorgon Industries.
Oh, they tripping.
Just phases in and out of reality. That's how the game works, how it's stored. Anyways, recently a fellow YouTuber slash I guess social media person, however you want to say it. I just don't want to say influencer. I just hate that word. Jake JLF made a pre-race cutscene concept for Forza. So basically, it's his vision for what a how when playing Forza Horizon, what would happen when you start a race, or more specifically, what happens right before the race actually starts. And I think the concept is really well put together, well made, and I think it's fascinating. Honestly, um, I think I wanted to mention it, to just put it out there, just for people who haven't seen it. I'll be sure to put one or if not both of the ones that he made. I think he used some, what's it called? He used some footage from game trailers and other things, but then he has the actual gameplay after that, after the sequence of video, matching the surroundings, vehicle, and everything else. So it looks really good, and I think it would be fantastic, and I just want more people to see it. And I also have an interesting take on it. So I want to ask you guys, first of all, have you guys seen it at all?
Yeah,
All right.
it's pretty cool, man.
No.
Yeah,
It doesn't know.
I
I'm a
really do
chick, though.
think. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
It
I'm
reminds me of
gonna-
like the old NFS games, like from the black box era ish.
Yeah.
And what other game was it? M- is it you know like in the boss races in Most Wanted when
Oh
it's-
yeah.
some
Dude,
cool
I
ass,
recently-
drifts and all that.
I recently
Yeah, it's really
replayed like
nice.
the entirety of Most Wanted 05. So yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. But yeah, so I think it's really neat. Here's the thing. This is not at all in any way, shape, or form to rip on the idea. I just spent the last however much time praising it. I think it's a really good idea. I think it's executed well. But here's the thing. There are so many other clear issues with Forza. So many other glaring issues, in my opinion, completely in my opinion, not by fact, but that it's everything you did is fine and great actually, but the reaction worries me. The reaction worries me. There are a lot of other like people reacting to it, and some of them being like I think Theo and I think some others, some like higher like influence whatever YouTubers.
Reasonable.
Yeah. People with that can influence the way the next game is developed in some way, shape, or form. And that's cool. I think that's great. But I also think what that means is the what's it called? Developers are going to see that. And they're going to be like, oh, look at how all these influencers are reacting to this thing that Jake made. Let's add that into the next game. And not add anything that would actually impact the gameplay experience. That
reminds
that
me of
is what
me-
makes me like. I just have no hope for Forza at all. I have zero hope for it, and it's not because it's not that great of a game. I would make the argument that it's not that great of a game, but I'm not trying to say that as a firm statement. What I'm really saying is, as for what appeals to me personally, and as for what I want subjectively, I have no hope for Forza in the future at all. Zero. It's dead. It's completely dead. We're gonna get this. We're gonna get like some fancy other things, some more menued elements. We're gonna get maybe more characters to select from, maybe more outfits, maybe like a larger car list, of course. Instead of seasons, maybe they'll add, I don't know, some other thing that'll look really good on the outside and will have some minor effect on how people play the game, if barely any. But the rest of the game will just be the same. We're not gonna have a story. We're not gonna have decent progression. We're not gonna have decent anything. It's just gonna be what it is, a glorified tech demo. And I'm not. Before I had a tiny sliver of hope, but now I'm realizing that a lot of the fan base is just not interested in the same things, and that's totally fine. That's it just means it's just not the game for me. That's all that means. It doesn't
It's
mean
like
that it shouldn't be that way. It just means it's not for me.
it's kind of like like the Need Speed fandom. I want new cars. I want
Yes.
new things like that. But they don't realize there's about 1,000,001 things to fix before that.
You know,
Clipping
I
on
was
the
about
road,
to say,
police damage, and the shit story.
Yeah, go
it's
ahead.
like what they're doing is they're not like prioritizing the critical fixes to the game. They're just things they want.
Yeah, the
It's
prior
like what?
here's the thing.
It's sometimes what you want and what you need doesn't line up, and that's what
Exactly.
it's like.
Exactly. Here's the thing. It would not make sense for them to listen to what I want in a Forza Horizon game as it would for them to listen to their core audience, right? But you see, this is where we get those no Toyota, no buy people, you know? Because they're not expecting a good game. They just want a certain specific type of experience, and that's it. They're not asking for anything else. They're not asking for a decent game. And people have made before, I think Cam did some time ago, that, racing games have never had really good stories. And I agree. He said that, stories in racing games are just kind of there. And, what else? What else?
You need
I
a
don't know.
primary driving force.
Yeah, yeah, no one should be playing a racing game for a story, and I completely agree, 100%.
Sucker.
But but the thing is, right? A story in a game provides context for why you're doing what you're doing. It
Oh, yeah, you
needs to
still
have
need
that
it,
to
man. It doesn't have to be
function.
the
Like, it's
primary.
just not complete. It's not a complete game. Forza Horizon,
Yeah.
it just doesn't, like, it's
I
missing
can put
something.
it this way.
Go
And
ahead.
put it this way, Dave. It's not the primary in a racing game, but it should be somewhere there. Maybe secondary or tertiary. It should be there.
It should
Like
be
at
there.
least.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, you want to drive, but it's like, yes, I'm driving. But why am I driving?
Yeah, and a lot of people can make the
Oh.
argument, well, I'm driving because Forza physics, I'm driving because this, I'm driving because that. That's cool. As a game, as something that functions, it needs that. Like, would you
It's
okay, you imagine if the Call of Duty campaign in the next one was in some way, shape, or form similar to the system that exists in Forza. Like, there's no main objective. You just I guess you just
shoot
do
me
some
gun.
random missions, and then there's no, but even that, like, you would unlock them in a certain order and they lead up to something. In some sense,
yeah.
in Horizon 4, the final event was the Goliath circuit, and I do appreciate that that was something that does exist as. Let me think of how I'm going to say this. It did kind of separate itself from everything else. Obviously, the Goliath circuit isn't just an ordinary race, but what I was trying to say about with this and comparing it to COD or any other game, right? I'm not necessarily comparing it, but what I'm saying is, imagine these characteristics in any other type of game. No one would think it would be acceptable, except for maybe like Gary's mod. But you see, Gary's mod, people don't really buy that or think that it's kind of like a game, really, necessarily. They see it as more like a tech demo. And I guess that's kind of the direction that Forza's heading. But the thing is, with Gmod, it's a bit difficult to implement a story there. With Forza, they did implement a story in 2012 with the first Horizon. You see what I'm saying here? Like,
Yeah.
dude, even
You know
even
what's
in,
interesting you say about that?
go ahead.
What's interesting is that you said with what was it, the story that, like, it provides context. I feel like in Horizon 4, how you describe that stuff, there is a story, there's just no context to the story. It's like, okay, this is the final race. Wait, why am I here? How did I get here? What's happening?
Yeah, there's no context.
Whatever.
Hey, dude, imagine Horizon 5, like the opening sequence is like your character opens his eyes and you're surrounded by a bunch of people and they drag you in a trash bag. You get kidnapped and you have to, I don't know, do races for the festival, or your family
You
gets
know that
shot.
kind of
Like,
stuff,
I don't know,
right?
do something, man.
The original part where you should get the breakout reminds me of in the run when you had to break out the fucking
Out of the
fucking
car?
Porsche stuck in the crusher, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have to not get that.
Yeah,
I
there's
kind
a-
of thought that was interesting.
Yeah, there's a
I,
version of I know that that's one parallel between the normal version and the 3DS port, which is what I played. Because on the 3DS you tap the screen to break the glass. Such a stupid port. We don't have to
no,
talk
but that's
about
how you
that
do it in real
anymore.
Yeah.
life.
But you know, the thing is, even sandbox games. Look at Minecraft. There's a boss at the end of the game. There's something. Dude,
There is.
look at Most Wanted 2012. Okay,
Do you know? I feel like.
it has
Do you know what I
racers that
feel
you
like
beat.
Minecraft is?
Yeah, go ahead. Go for
Minecraft
it.
technically does actually have a progression from beginning it to defeating
It does. It
the
absolutely does.
Ender Dragon in the end. Because it's the achievement list,
Yeah.
top to bottom is the order. So it's like it's almost like the story's there. You just don't know where to look for it.
Well, not only that, but you have to do things in order to progress. You know, you're
Hell
not
yeah.
gonna beat the last thing, whatever it is, in no
And
gear
wood.
and whatever, unless you're like really, really good at the game, right?
Unless you're a beast, good on you, bro.
Yeah. Um, you know, obviously there are different armor sets and whatever, and they make you stronger and whatnot. And you know, imagine if Minecraft was like Forza. I know it's a stupid comparison, but humor me, everyone. Imagine
Yeah,
if it
I'm
was
humoring.
like that, and you fight like the boss and whatever, and its health and how much damage it does to you scale based on how good of a character you are, like your own stats, right? So like it's as hard as defeating a normal thing. Wouldn't that be a little broken? Wouldn't that just be the tad bit broken? Maybe. Like basically what I'm saying is if it doesn't actually provide any challenge and there's no reason to actually progress, because the same thing happens with Forza. You have no reason to upgrade your cars or buy new ones or faster
I
ones.
think
You never do.
you know, like you know the way Todd Howard say Fallout 76 is for the gamers. You make your own. It sounds a bit like that, where they just become lazy and
Yeah.
rest on their own laurels or whatever that saying's called.
Here's the thing. What they're doing is smart business wise. Very smart business wise. You don't have to spend that much time developing something that not as many
Yeah,
people will care about.
they're,
And
they're making
so,
a lot of money.
yeah,
Because
and
people just care about the cars and customization. They don't give a shit about it.
yeah,
So maybe I guess it's a good thing in their eyes, and
yeah,
it's a
here's the
good
thing.
business wise.
I respect what they're doing. I absolutely respect what they're doing, but I don't agree with what they're doing. That's the difference. And I'm never gonna like suppress my own, I guess, thoughts about this. But no, I absolutely agree that, you know, A, what they're doing is a smart business decision, whatever. B, if they're doing what the majority of people want, then they're appealing to their own fan base, which is a good idea. Um, so you know, good on them. They're gonna make more people happy doing what they're doing now than doing what I want them to do. That's not gonna stop me because I think these things are worth discussing, as because I don't believe that Forza is like the near perfect game that everyone makes it out to be, and
Perfect,
the
jeez.
near perfect, as
Yeah.
what people are saying. If you go to some like game reviewers, they would probably say it's like perfect, but you know, yeah,
But to be
game
fair,
reviewers
they're
are
also a
weird.
game reviewer.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I I kind of look at them like how like you look at like a disabled child. Like, you know, you're doing your best, but like, what's happening, bro? Like,
Oh
there's
my
something,
gosh.
there's a lot you're missing here. Stop drooling on the
Uh,
controller.
yeah.
Are there any game reviewers you kind of trust or not at all?
Uh,
Um,
I don't really know any, honestly. Like, I don't particularly look at reviews.
if you want
The
me to
reviews I
be
look at are
honest,
usually the people who are like highly invested in a game, and then I'll
yeah,
look for like other opinions, and then like in my brain, air quotes,
some,
average it
hmm,
out. Because you know one thing I would say is, which I kind of like, is I watch like I've been playing Tekken for a while, and I've watched one. I agree with them in that is like I do not fucking recommend playing Tekken, and the reason why is it's such a brutally hard game. Like it's
yeah, that's
there's
true.
no tutorial, no anything. It's so unfriendly to new players. So I'll be like, you play if you want, bro, but you're gonna suffer for a while.
It's like those.
Like I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend it for new players. I'd recommend it to returning players.
All right,
What's
really
that?
quickly here, I'm gonna
Start game
modify
FPS.
bitrate, so just
Okay.
hold on a second, just to increase audio quality, because I'm gonna see if it's possible without hurting the connection. All right, keep going. Go ahead.
So, what was that? Sekiro last year. Some reviews were saying
Yes.
too easy. I mean, it's too hard. We need the easy mode and things like that. And they were
Yeah,
just
and
that. And
like
that
you
just
got from software did.
yeah, it just make them look so
Well,
stupid.
no.
Like, bro, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, I really don't know either. Um, it's just it is what it is. But
Mm.
again, I
Also,
really don't have much hope for Forza in the future. One other thing I do want to address, I have heard around. I think it might have been Cam, it might have been someone else. And by the real quick, don't ever think that anyone's taking shots at anyone unless we're making it obvious. This is not a
Oh
shot.
yeah, I'll
It's very
flame you.
clear. You know, but he said something about how what was it? About in the modern era, right? Times change, games are different now, and Forza is. It might also just be that Forza is ahead of its time in terms of how a game should be played. In terms of you hop on and you do whatever you want. It doesn't necessarily have to be much structure to it. Um, I think that's a good point, but I would also make the argument that as a complete package, the way Forza is now, I actually genuinely believe that with a story, with some progression, it can still be as great as it is as a sandbox, and also at the exact same time be or feel rewarding and have its credits mean something and have car builds mean something and have a story so what you're doing means something. If you look at Horizon 1, the game gives you a lot of credits, just as modern Horizon games do. Especially with street races, some of them give you like upwards of 50,000 credits or something like that for a relatively short race. The thing is, when you're playing through the campaign, the races that you unlock will require a certain, what's it called? A certain class. Okay, and as you're doing these races and progressing, the game's not stopping you from owning or upgrading other cars that you might have. It doesn't have to have progression with unlocking vehicles or unlocking upgrades. I think that would be neat, but it doesn't have to have that. You can still have it feel like an open sandbox type experience. Just do it like Horizon 1. You can, as long as you have the money for it, which you will because the game is very generous, you can have cars like basically any car you want, just like the modern Horizon games. The only difference is you don't progress in the story with it. And if you don't care about the story, then you don't have to. Then you have what you have or what you want. You get what I'm saying? Like Horizon 1 had the best of both worlds. You both had a story. You had something that provided context and that also had some benefits like boss races here and there. You had car classes, car class restrictions on races, so that your cars and car builds as per specific classes had a purpose. Your money had a purpose. Buying new cars had a purpose. Upgrading your cars had a purpose. Um, and again, you still have the freedom to basically do whatever you want. So I really don't think that it's a thing of, oh, this is kind of how games are nowadays. I disagree. I think it's more so they're being not lazy, but selective with their effort. They're not putting effort towards things that aren't going to make more people happy, which makes sense. If you're developing a game, it does take a lot of resources. You want to put them towards what will, I guess, make the majority of people happy. So, uh, I respect what they're doing, but I don't agree with it. And I think that's all I want to say about that. So, yeah. If you guys want to add anything real quick while I get the next thing.
Forza. Yes. I don't know what to say about that game. I haven't actually bought a Forza game. Last Forza game I bought was Horizon 1, and that
Yeah.
was like 2015? Because I remember I
So
played
somewhere around
Horizon
there.
2, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, let's try
You
the
want to go
first
back
one.
to
I'm
the
like,
first one.
oh, why
Yeah.
did I not play this earlier?
Same thing with me, except mine was I played it later. I got my first Horizon was actually the third game. on PC.
Oh,
And then I was first extremely disappointed with PC performance because it ran like it was trying to run the game on a PS2, like GTX 1080, medium 40 FPS. That something. I'm no computer engineer, but something's not right. You know what I'm saying? Eventually they patched it and it's a little better. It still crashes and whatever. I was very disappointed in that. Then I was very disappointed in the rest of the game. I was like, you know what? Some people are saying a lot of good things about the first Horizon. So let me try it out. I get a 360 for like 40 or $60. I get the first Horizon game and it's mind blowing. Like I can't even describe. And you know, the thing is, a lot of people say, "Oh, it's just nostalgia." It's not nostalgia. You can write down
no,
on a
that
piece
is
of paper very
I've
clear
never played it,
objective
yeah.
differences, measurable differences in how the game
Yeah,
is
and not even
laid
just
out.
that. Yeah, you don't have nostalgia. You never played it.
Yeah, I never played it. I guess
Like
you
that
could
was
say
one
that there's
thing. Like,
bias because I went into it expecting like, oh, people say that this is a better game. But then again, you could also make the argument that I was excited for Horizon 3 because of what everyone else was saying about, you know,
Same.
it up to it, and then when it came out, people were still really, really happy with it, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I was also thinking, you know, maybe the way they're excited about Horizon 3 is the same level of excitement with Horizon 1. You know, maybe they're happy that, oh, back when Horizon 1 came out, like, oh, it's a nice sandbox style racing game with a lot of freedom.
yo,
And maybe that's, but no, I think people are, you know, remember the
that's a
first game for
great
different
topic.
reasons.
That's a
So,
great topic that you
so
just stumbled into. The idea of nostalgia and old games still maintaining very good quality. Because
Yes.
I played a lot of games where I missed, and I'm like, okay, I see why people like rate this game so highly. Like, what the fuck? But a
Yeah.
lot of older games I played, especially from like the 2000s, I'm like, this has features that are removed in the newer iterations of this.
Yes. Yes.
Like, it has
I don't.
more in the older games. Like, and I remember in Tekken 5, you literally had an inbuilt in the start screen like a spaceship fighter game. I was like, what the fuck? Why is this a thing? They just threw this in, huh?
Yeah,
And then they
they
had
just did
Tekken 3 as a secret option. I was like, so I get 2 games for the price of one. I was
Pretty
like,
much.
okay,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
You know, obviously, some games, some things are down to nostalgia, but when I was like replaying Most Wanted 05, as I think I mentioned last episode, the game A will last way longer than Heat. B will not have random
hell yeah.
handling glitches and clipping and random, you know, nonsense like that. Like two very clear, very important basic things that really change, I guess, it's the experience you get. And so I think a lot of people who seem to blame nostalgia, I think it's some sort of scapegoat because maybe
Yeah.
if you grew up in, you know, around the time
Do you
the
know what
8th
I
gen
don't
consoles came
like
out,
as well?
then I guess you'd defend them. Yeah, go ahead. What are you saying?
What I also don't like is where people talk about like, and this is kind of a point to it's just nostalgia. We see the console like, oh, I remember playing this as a kid, best game ever. It's like, okay, but why? Like really seriously, tell me. Like, but it's like if you honestly give me the reasons, I'm like, oh, that's crazy. I'll try it.
Yeah,
But they just
it's
go, they go off nostalgia. Those cunts.
I
Oh,
will make
and
you feel
a real wake up call.
as well.
A real wake up call is when you play those games years and years and years later, and it really stands the test of time. Because some of them, oof, don't. Some of them are like, holy shit, these are like, it's the worst cases like this is horse shit. Like, that like when I was a kid, dude, I like just constantly smash my head into the wall, and I thought this was good. But and then the best response is this is literally better than all the games that followed it in the series.
Mm. Yeah, what
Okay,
were you saying,
That's
Sol?
that's wild response.
I want to say my point because I got a few interesting things I think you'll like.
Mhm.
So in terms of nostalgia, I played in 2015 about 2 years afterwards because I never had a console then, and I found it kind of shit and boring, especially with the handling, and I had
Yep.
to use a trainer to actually drive through cars to finish the game because the handling. And in the end, I only got like
handling
30 hours into it.
Need for
Because the thing
Speed.
was is that I was quick as fuck on that game, but the thing is like I was not driving a car. I've said this multiple times. I was driving. I was I don't even know what I was driving. I was driving a reptilian creature that was covered in steel. I don't know what the fuck I was driving in that
Yeah,
game.
yeah. Okay, here's the thing,
The
Sol.
thing was, it was an atmosphere, and it was
Yeah.
a time.
Yeah.
It was a
Yes, it is
it's a very
Need
time.
I
Need for
think, yeah,
Speed
it's because I
2015.
never played at that time. If
Hell no,
no one else was playing
Yeah,
it, and it was
yeah,
dead.
no. Need for Speed 2015 is a perfect example of how nostalgia and also the times when something happens and atmosphere and other feeling related things completely
Yeah.
change the way a game feels rather than actual good gameplay content. Need for Speed 2015, it's just a bad game. It is what
Oh
it
yeah,
is. No, it really is. It's horrible.
Wolf's caught.
The
But here's
handling
one thing
mod,
it does have, right? It
yeah,
looks pretty as fuck.
it does,
And the
but
photo mode is still
mhm.
better than anything. Like, that's the one, which is like why I can see some of these guys going, oh, fuck me, I'm going back to 2015 to do cinematics.
You know,
I
I'll
want to say,
revisit this shit.
I want to say I played Heat. I mean, sorry, the run a few days ago. And it's like light and day difference. Like the people in there weren't retarded. The cars don't clip into the ground. The stands are
exactly.
mental. The police are actually pretty decent as well. There's
Mhm.
a story. There's an atmosphere. It makes you actually want to play. It makes you immerse into it. It makes you like on edge all the time. You're not chilling. You're sitting up on your chair. You're not relaxing, whatever. And your heart's beating fully, and I mean really fast until like you hit
Yo,
the end of the race.
Mhm.
And it's the same things with other games with NFS and W05, and
you
people say
gave me
stuff like
the.
that is shit. It's just stupid and it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Because like if you compare it to games now, it said it doesn't last as long. It's boring. It's broken. At least when most of W05 a fucking 15-year-old game, I can play now and have no issues.
Yeah, it works. That's the thing. It works. It functions as a game, you know, and
Something
it's
Todd
just
Howard
sad.
said a few years ago, which unfortunately became a meme because his game was shit and didn't work, and still doesn't
Nah.
stay.
Mm. Okay, and
Okay.
you know what's funny? Most Wanted 05 on the 360 has PvP, has online PvP multiplayer, and Need for Speed Heat doesn't. Is that just wild, or is that just me? You know, back
Why
then,
do you think he hasn't got PvP in the first place? Do you think it's just
effort.
some weird conspiracy, or do you
No,
think it's
effort.
because
I,
of?
I honestly, whether it's true or not, I genuinely believe that it's just a lack of effort. Maybe it's a calculated lack of effort. They're like, okay, we can't afford to, waste our lives trying to put PvP in here. We need to, this thing is broken. We need to fix it. I think it's a lack of effort. But
I'm also happy I deleted the game about 2 weeks now, and it's good.
yeah, it's I don't
Waste
know.
of time, man. Waste of my
I
storage.
know, I know a great way to explain 2015, right? And what Carl just said.
You got lucky.
Like, it had a good atmosphere in 2015, but the atmosphere that made it so good for us, it wasn't in game. It was everything surrounding it.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It was kind of shit.
It's like
when I
you
had it
missed
because-
out. Like, oh yeah, I can. That was definitely a very critical part of receiving that game. Since you didn't get it, you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah,
I'll
no,
probably feel the
I
same.
think
So
so. The reason you feel that way about 2015 is you have
It's because
more of an
I'm the
unbiased perspective. Like I will
hell
happily
yeah.
admit, I can still hop on and have a good time and like remember the feeling I had and like even with though the handling model, like I've gotten used
Good
to it and
old
everything,
days.
but the game's still bad. the game's just
Oh
really
yeah.
bad.
Oh,
But I can still have
I
fun
played it
with
like
it.
thousands of times.
But the reason I have fun with it isn't because it's a good game. Um, yeah, and I
yeah.
guess.
Like I've installed some old games like Hitman Blood Money. I love that game, man. It looks pretty decent even to this day.
That's a banger.
I'm
Yeah,
2006.
Hitman games are bangers.
yeah.
The only yeah, I'm kind of at the point in life where I really don't give a shit unless it's something special. And the only one that's kind of special to me is possibly Cyberpunk when that releases. So
Yeah, dude, you know what? Legit, I'm no, not kidding when I say this. I'm excited for the SpongeBob SquarePants, the remaster, the one game that's coming out this year or maybe next year or something like that. There
listen,
actually is one. Yeah, no. Part of it's for nostalgia, but part of it's because I also think it's a good game. I mean, yeah, that's silly, but I don't. I'm not really that excited for a lot of games anymore. But like EA games, they like even in the seventh generation they started to die out. I don't know if we'll ever kind of see them come back to the good old days, if you will.
Unless something big happens, they're not gonna like. I don't think they're going to like.
Yeah.
I think I was on about it. They even cancelled that remake of the remake of the remake that they cancelled the first time with Amy Hennig. I think was it the
Oh.
director for the Uncharted series or something like that.
Maybe.
Like
I don't remember.
it's just mad, like some weird stupid business things going on.
Yeah, EA, I feel like around 2015 we thought, "Oh, maybe they're changing it and in a good way." 2015 Need for Speed 2015 doesn't have microtransactions, doesn't have DLC, it has free content. It got free content because it got bad game reviews on IGN and other websites and other things like that. It got bad reviews. That's probably why it got free updates, not because of anything with EA. As we shortly learned with, what's it called? Star Wars Battlefront 2015. Fast forward some time. Payback comes out, has RNG speed cards and everything. We're like, oh man, can't believe this happened. We hear more and more about Star Wars Battlefront 2. And they're talking about how, we heard a lot about people's criticisms for the first game and about how a lot of people disliked that extra content was locked behind a paywall. You had to pay for the expansions and then play online with other people who had those expansions. You had to have the expansions. So like, okay, we're not going to do that. We're like, yay, that means no more paying for expansion DLC. They're just going to give it to us. And then obviously there's the whole situation with Battlefront 2 and, microtransactions. But apparently through updates and through time, they've somewhat fixed that. And now what I think is just going to happen is this perpetual and never-ending cycle of EA doing some minor good things and minor bad things here and there. Look at people, I guess it's cool that with Jedi of the Fallen Order, they let Respawn, I think, maybe, develop the game on an engine that wasn't Frostbite. But then again, I think they also let off Visceral Games or something else. Like EA is always constantly making minor steps forwards and minor steps backwards. That's
No, it's not. It's millions of minor things. Like
yeah.
like to do Anthem, the need of Greenhouse Studio, then they force them to work on things only a small amount can work on the supposedly remade thing which improves it, and they make one good game, but then you have Heat which just ruins that. So
I still think I still think Heat is okay, but it's not good enough. Heat is an improvement, in terms of if you want to look at Payback in 2015, Heat is an improvement, 100%. I believe so, but I don't think it's good enough. Like it's not really hard to have an improvement on a handling model if your first handling model was like almost unplayably broken. Like
we're not going to talk about the R35 in 2015. That thing was literally unusable.
Yeah.
Not the premium, but yeah, that thing was literally.
It's
the car, honestly.
Heat is the game we should have gotten in 2015 at that time.
Yeah, I really should have.
No,
And then even then it wouldn't. It's not amazing.
Yo, imagine if we got 2015. Imagine if we got 2015 with Heat's handling, but with just the rest of the game like that.
Yo,
They showed
okay.
him.
That would have been insane.
I still think it
man.
would have done a bit bad in some ways.
Yeah, no, it would have been because the cops are terrible in 2015. If you took Heat's cops minus the damage system, the damage system is just a cheap cop out because they can't develop cops that'll actually
but
stop
the cops
you,
themselves are pretty shit. If you think about it.
Yeah, if you take away
they only added the damage to compensate for.
Yeah, they made the damage system because they couldn't develop a system where cops will actually like slow and stop you. Like you play older games, and I remember I had like around the time the game first launched. Around the time the game first launched, I remember like I wasn't being attacked, but there were a lot of people like, oh, the cops are way better than like older games. I'm like, really? No, they're not. Like they take away a lot of damage, but they don't. I've been saying this since like day one.
I think they got two.
I'll scream that. Like, no, do you remember? I remember once what happened to me was I had 3 cops, right? Both on my
Mhm.
side, one behind me, and they just slammed off into the side and boxed me in. I'm like, yeah, see, that's like a strat to get me to start without relying on damage as a crutch.
Yeah, yeah, I want stuff like that to happen. That actually makes me think about what's going on.
Oh yeah, not even that. How about the cop cars actually just keep up? Because if
That
you
would be
anything
nice. Yeah,
nearing high 300s, 400, you just put the foot down, you're gone.
yeah. Here's the thing. Uh, Heat 5 cops in Heat. If you take away the helicopters, you take away the damage system, they're Heat level 2 cops in Most Wanted 05. Heat
Yeah, they really
maybe
are.
Heat level 3. I'll be generous. Heat level 3
Triple
cops in Most
five.
Wanted 05.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's also, do the helicopters really do anything in Heat except surveillance?
Oh, really?
Because like in Most Wanted, they like dive in
I've
on
been
your
ran
car.
by those fucking helicopters in
Yeah.
most ones.
Yeah, they
Jesus.
do, like, especially in like Heat 5. Like you would expect like you're a World War II and it's a kamikaze pilot or something. Like, holy
But
cow.
yeah, man, yeah, screaming bonzo. Those comes to spastics. Like
Yeah.
I've been crashed into once by a helicopter. I barrel rolled like 30 times, landed on my roof. They boxed me in, and then I reset outside the box that they boxed me in. I was like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, no, that sounds about right. So I'm gonna check really quickly. Yeah, there was something I noticed. I was looking at the Need for Speed soundtracks that they have on Spotify to see how many people are following individual playlists, just out of curiosity. Now, I believe they started this in 2015, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
So I guess there
no,
is
you're right.
going to be a bit more of a following towards that.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
for people
do
who
you
are
know what
like,
they
oh,
did do?
cool, follow. Yeah. Go
What they
ahead.
did do is they did 2015, and then they tossed up all the old soundtracks,
Yeah,
or what?
Yeah.
Or
they
not
did that
Spotify,
later.
which is cool.
But
Yeah, but 2015 was the first.
here's
The one,
here's
the one
something.
that has the most followers from what I can see is Most Wanted 2005.
I'm checking here. Yes, I think it
Actually,
does. Besides,
yeah,
they also made a generic Need for Speed playlist. So
yeah,
like,
but that don't count. That
yeah,
don't
yeah,
count.
it really doesn't. But here's what I thought was interesting. Need for Speed 2015, 74,695 followers. Need for Speed Payback, 34,671 followers. Okay,
Woo!
okay, fair enough.
That soundtrack wasn't even that bad.
Need for
It
Speed
was
Heat.
quite good in my opinion.
Need for Speed Heat, 33,411 followers.
Oh,
I'm starting to think that alongside gameplay and other things, the soundtracks haven't been doing too good in Need for Speed in a long time.
fuck no!
In a
Like
long time.
Need for Speed's not been doing well, and the soundtrack is just another metric we can use to reflect that. Like it's in the fucking trash can right now.
Yeah.
The dump truck hasn't picked it up just yet. Somehow, some fucking how. They went to go
Somehow.
pick up what was left. They went to go pick up Ghost though, and they shipped to the tip. But
Yeah.
the actual franchises have been sent to the trash can yet. Honestly, Need for Speed is like a fucking Titanic name. Like, I, I think the lowest we'll ever see it is not even a non-existent franchise, but just making like, just dog shit. And
Yeah,
I would
it's
say
just,
mobile games, but fuck, if No Limits didn't have the need to have fuel to race, it would be fine. I wouldn't mind that game.
I still wouldn't.
What it is.
I hate mobile games. They always control like crap, with a few exceptions. But yeah, no, I just don't play games on
Need for
mobile.
Speed No Limits. Went back before it was actually officially released on the store, right?
Yeah.
Actually, even in its first releases and all that, it didn't control. And let me put it this way: they didn't have a microtransaction type thing for currency, because I played that shit in a beta, and people were like, "I've been grinding for like 3 weeks. I have 100K." I'm like, bro, back in the beta, you could do like 6 hours worth of races and have like 1 million.
That's ridiculous.
Like they had like an actual like working economy in the beta. They didn't have
Oh.
microtransactions. They didn't have need to buy fuel so you can race. Like it was actually pretty fucking good for a mobile game. And then they like
They just kill it. Yeah.
Yeah, like,
Oh,
yeah.
I want to say in terms of music, and I think someone said before something. It's like they got a middle-aged man, woman, against any gender whatsoever. So I think they got like a person's out of touch, doesn't know what they're doing. They look at what they think kids, young adults think is cool, and put it in the game. You see that with the theme, with the things people say like, "I got diarrhea, I ate a shit chicken burger," and some edgy weird.
That's weird.
And I got some weird songs, in my opinion, paired with some decent ones, but still just ruins the experience, man.
Yeah.
And you can see like compared to
People-
like
You know what my thing is?
compared
My
to like
thing is,
go on, yeah.
I actually like Heat soundtrack, but the thing is, I don't like listening to it in the game. Literally, I love that soundtrack anywhere else but in game.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
like,
what I mean. Like
oh,
I do it
yeah.
when I'm driving or whatever, not driving in the game.
Yeah, I don't
There's-
even realize it either. I'll play the filthy skanky fucking Jason Patterson that way.
There's, and I
And
think
I'll listen to the Latin music, like just doing whatever, but I don't give a fuck about the soundtrack in the game. It's like, holy shit! How the fuck did you make a pretty decent soundtrack, but that I don't care for in the game you compiled it for?
You see-
what the fuck?
the reason, two things. The first thing is, when you have only 4 or 5 songs that repeat incessantly for a certain area, but then it changes to night, or you do a different thing. Yeah, that's just so annoying and pointless.
Yeah.
And even like games like Most Wanted 05, some races you'll only hear, or some songs you'll only hear when racing. Some songs you'll only hear in the open world or something like that, or
can still
some in the menu.
customize it
But
to a
you know
certain
what's
degree.
great? You know what's great about Most Wanted 05? It has EA tracks, so you can go and modify.
Yeah, modify
So like
what you
I
want.
went the first, when I was playing Most Wanted 05, the first thing I did was I switched all the songs to all the time. And if someone doesn't want to do that, they have the
Right.
choice to. They have the choice to. And
How do I forget that?
that's the first thing, right? Just a feature is missing. The second
Yeah,
thing
but
is
I talked about that before. How some in the newer iterations there's features missing from games. Yeah, that's one of them. Pretty critical one for Need for Speed. EA tracks or just something so where you can like a jukebox
Change.
where you can modify what songs you hear when.
yeah.
'Cause I like a lot of the songs in daytime free roam, but I'm not.
You
just
can't
gonna drive
listen
around
to them
free roam.
unless
You
you're in
can't.
daytime free roam.
You can't. It's the card to be like a certain amount of times in it.
Yeah.
You have to switch it up, and you know what I mean? Because it's decent, but not like every fucking time.
Yeah.
And also, like for instance, the old games suited the things the most. Like with Underground, it had that pink eclipse, so
Oh my
you can
God.
see. And then at the end, it's like, dum dum dum, and then you know what it is. If you showed anyone played
Yeah.
that game, the song,
Yeah.
that then nobody
Yeah.
gets completely. Same
I
with
thought about this.
Underground 2 with Snoop Dogg, and it just goes on, man. It's just a banger.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just thought about this. Imagine in real life, if like you listen to Spotify, you could it would only play like a certain part of your playlist depending on what you're doing.
my god. Oh my
I'm
gosh.
fucking shit myself.
Yeah. Me
I
too.
think in the
Oh,
future,
that's
the-
so-
the-
and it's only
the-
4
the-
songs or something.
Gross. Like I'm
I
doing
al-
schoolwork, like driving.
I already get so tired of music so quickly. That would not be good.
Yeah, like
But-
fuck.
But I wanted to say the second thing I was saying. I think the reason why you might like the soundtrack in Heat, but not the way it is in Heat, is because there's a certain thing about a game's experience that a soundtrack has to reflect, and has to, it can add to the atmosphere. And I think, you see, the thing is, I think Heat's soundtrack tried to sound like Miami, but for some
It
reason,
did.
I don't really get.
Hispanic Latin.
Yeah, I don't really get
Tropical.
a Miami vibe from Heat.
I got Cuba, not Miami.
Yeah, I
I
just
got
get
missile crisis.
Isn't like
I just get a weird nothingness,
second
like just a
characters
generic
from
racing
Cuba
game.
Yeah.
anyway.
They're
We can talk about something very stylized and specific soundtrack for a racing game, and it's interesting because you threw a song in yesterday.
yeah,
The
go ahead.
brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fucking Midnight Club 2 had
Midnight Club 2.
such a like specific soundtrack, like
My
you
game never
know
had
when you
those
hear
songs
them.
working. Oh shit.
Oh yeah, like acid trance and like. just
Honestly,
trance-
as a huge fan of metal, I didn't like. I couldn't listen to Midnight Club 2's soundtrack just by itself for fun. Like I would not be the person to do that, but it fits
I can
so
do it.
well with the game. It fits so well
It's
with the game.
grimy.
Yeah,
It's
I'm never gonna.
illegal.
I'm never gonna turn off the soundtrack when I'm playing Midnight Club 2 because it fits. I like the way it sounds because it fits. It
Like
fits
I said,
perfectly.
I've always said, Midnight Club 2 has the best menu theme for a racing
Oh,
game. And
the menu music.
the dark sense. It's
Dude.
like I'm doing bad shit right now. That's
Yeah,
what
it-
that
it-
sounds
it
like.
takes you to the
Honestly,
void.
Honestly, I kind of find that kind of scary sometimes as a kid. I don't know why. But
Yeah, as a kid,
There you go,
for
a lot of
sure.
people do that.
Yeah, it's a bit weird, man. I also want to ask,
Mm-hmm.
what are you guys' favorite soundtrack from an EVP game? Like, to which game?
Okay, I have to think about that.
That's hard, yeah.
Gut Reaction is Most Wanted 05. Gut Reaction.
Gut reaction
the
for me is Underground, the first one.
first Underground.
Like
Yeah.
like you had like the only Static X,
Yes,
like
classic.
Element 80, like you had some bangers. I also kind
Yeah.
of like the two lane fucking Rob Zombie. And then you had the
Mm.
rap, and then some of that electronic was like, look, what a nice mix. Look, is it our favorite one or what we think is from a objective standpoint to be? Because
Oh, okay. You see, if we're talking about like objectively,
nuances, yeah.
I guess like does it suit the game? Does it kind of represent what the game is trying to make you feel and other stuff? I actually think Carbon does a great job with that because in the game there's this kind of they brought muscle cars and everything, but there's this idea of different types of vehicles with tuners, muscles, exotics, and they have different handling characteristics. There's a specific boss for each type. I get minus Darius.
Yeah.
The one you pick changes the whole progression of the game. When you're scrolling through a tuner in a car lot, the music it plays a certain track
changes.
and then it
It's,
changes, right? And
No,
it,
it's fuck. What I can't remember it's the extract track, right? But
Yeah,
it's split
one
into
from-
3 parts. Where,
Yeah.
But people have chopped them up into tuner, exotic muscle,
yeah, and then
which is sick to me.
yeah, actually they were originally separated and then they combined it into like this custom OST thing. I think. Like Extract made certain
Yeah.
specific like it's like Sounding Streets and then like another one is called Burnout and then another one is called Belt and you're like with a combination of these then they kind of molded into the
And
soundtrack and
Induction
they
Kit,
changed
I
things.
remember, was the tuner one.
Induction no I think Induction Kit was the exotic car
No,
lot.
it's exotic. Belt.
Yeah,
is the tuner.
Belt is the tuner one. Yeah,
Stupid.
but you
I
see, like
remember, yeah.
all of this, and even the licensed part of the soundtrack, goes kind of split up. Like you had your rock and your hard rock and stuff there, and then you had like
Yeah.
the techno stuff, and you had like it was so like this really subtle theme of like different of the differences in tuners, muscles,
three
and
categories,
exotics. Like
which is
different
also
ways to play the
prevalent
game.
in the game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
then
prevalent.
also
So,
if
you
you're
know, it's not prevalent when you race how it plays the original soundtrack and not the fucking soundtrack.
yeah, I didn't.
That is a real critical issue that game had.
Yeah, honestly, if it gave you the option, it would have been good.
Because then
I-
what I did was I essentially just turned down the music and then like would put on like a speaker and play the. Holy
license.
fuck! If they had this, it would be great.
Yeah, it would. I guess you see, Carbon. It would have been really close as like a really great objective soundtrack, but I think for that reason it falls short. I think for that reason
Yeah,
it falls short.
no. If anything, in my opinion, it falls even shorter because like you had the like the objectively perfect soundtrack that you did use.
Yeah, he just killed it.
It's like what?
Oh man.
Were a lot of the songs British, like
Some
with
of them.
Dynamite MC?
Oh.
Yes, some of them were.
Oh yeah, a lot of them were like
I think
I
that kind of
remember I
added the
talked to
atmosphere
Cam
as well.
about this, right? I remember I was at the intro song, you know, the dun 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 for that the actual intro cinematic.
Yeah.
That's Roscoe, or whatever I think the name of that song is, and it's by an artist called Kansai. It's me getting a conversation. He was like, "Oh, Kansai's in Japan, bro. Japanese." I'm like, "No, they're from
No,
England.
what?
They just took their name." And he looked it up. I was like, "Yeah, no, the English artists. A lot of them are, but they take
Yeah.
way different names that you wouldn't expect. Like and funny enough, they're in Sheelix Felix the house cat. They're
Yeah,
also they are actually I can't remember actually the fucking France or
yeah. I think they might be
England.
French.
But there is a lot of English musicians in that fucking game, especially the trance artists.
Yeah.
I
I
think that's
so.
what made the atmosphere better, in my opinion, especially with all the dark, grimy shit going on.
Yeah,
For
like
sure.
it just felt evil, like you were doing bad things. And
Oh, I want
Also,
to. Go
yeah.
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, you know what? It's weird, but you know, like when you're moving through the menu and you press the button, it makes like electrical kind of sound. It goes really
Yes.
well
Oh,
with the
yeah.
music.
Dun, dun, dun. It
Yes,
sounds almost like it belongs as a instrument in
Dude,
the actual song. No, it's
Carbon's
just your
aesthetic,
menu.
everything is like perfectly woven together. The UI elements and everything, it just just a complete package like of a feeling.
Yeah, fucking man, I'm listening to the soundtrack
Also,
right now.
I like that X pattern thing when it was loading in game. You
Yes,
know,
yeah,
with the
that's like I
Yeah,
honestly,
I love that.
Carbon.
bro, it's perfect, man.
You see, 2015 had such a great atmosphere in the open world. Carbon had a great atmosphere everywhere.
Everything.
Everything.
It was all weaved together. The open world, the UI, the music weaved together into one.
Yeah, it's
Right,
I,
it's
crazy.
I applaud them for that, man. They made it in like a year. Was that the one that was made in a year? And they did all
think-
this good stuff, man.
Yeah, it was.
And then you have Heat, which is like shit compared to it. Literally talking about shit sometimes.
I
Yeah.
don't even like talking about Heat at this point. It feels like
Yeah, like
I'm
beating
sorry,
beating a dead
there
horse.
isn't even a corpse here. I'm just
Yeah.
sitting on ashes at this point.
Just
fuck.
ashes. Yeah. Man. But if I were to make the case for Most Wanted having a near perfect soundtrack, the thing like I like the rap you'd hear, and then it makes sense when you're
I love the
doing
rap
illegal
because
stuff.
I love
And
it, man.
also, it has some drum and bass, which I think it always suits a racing game. And then obviously it has the metal, and then like I think those three are kind of the genres of music that really suit a racing game. Something that you'd want to be fast paced and intense, and then I think it did a really good job of that. But there's also like a personal aspect to it. That's how I discovered Mastodon, which is my favorite band of all time currently.
Oh yeah, shut up,
So that's kind of more of a subjective thing. I don't really know what could be like the best Need for Speed soundtrack. I think Carbon did a good job, but then it threw it away by not giving you the option to actually listen to the licensed music.
Yeah,
Dude, honestly,
that's a
no.
fun.
Like the Need for Speed 3 Hot Pursuit soundtrack or the High Stakes, dude.
Also play that.
Those are actually bangers.
Those
You are
have
right, those are
insane soundtracks. For someone who couldn't have experienced the sound. Go ahead. Sorry.
when they added those old games in 2015, remember? Those
Yeah,
old
yeah, they
songs?
did.
Need for Speed? Those are cool.
But as you said before, that was kind of relying on nostalgia, so that's a bit of a cop out in it.
No.
Yeah.
No.
In some ways.
Well, what they did in 2015, yes. But as for the soundtrack, I don't think so. I did not grow up in the time of those games, so I couldn't have experienced nostalgia. But out of curiosity, one time I
the
just
fun
looked
fact.
up a playlist of like, oh, I'll just hear high stakes soundtrack, and like almost every song was like, wow, this is amazing, without
Dude, it's
nostalgia. I couldn't
definitely-
have felt nostalgia for it.
Yeah. Yeah, let me put it this way. It's definitely nostalgia for the dudes who play those games.
Yes.
I played the first Need for Speed games after 2015 was released because I'm like, yo, the soundtrack go crazy. I'm playing the game. Literally, the soundtrack made me go play the game.
Yeah. So, I think
It's
they've
like
got
with
it.
GTA IV, that had a banger soundtrack at the start when it's loading.
Yeah,
Oh,
before
so good.
Rockstar like took away so many songs, and to be fair, licensing, but
Shout
I
out
love,
the guy who made it, Michael, whatever his name was.
oh yeah, the composed soundtrack.
Yeah, that one. That's one about the what's it
Oh,
called?
okay. I think the licensed soundtrack is amazing too.
You know, like
think-
especially on the PS3 version when you turn it on, and it lasts about a minute. I love it, man. It's like it's a proper throwback.
Yeah, for sure.
Another song that I can say is a great soundtrack that's really well is Juiced. It's made by a Brit. Is the original one.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's got a British company. You can see all the like. It's got loads of atmosphere, and when I played it again, put me back in 2006 when I was playing on my friend's PS2. You choose the best phone, you choose the best sub when you're customizing the car. It's mad.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
unfortunately, not many games really do that anymore. Like
Mm.
even with like say modern game like GTA 5, there's nothing that I really remember as a great soundtrack. I like the score, sometimes the background, but that's
Just
about it.
scores.
The score's good. Yeah. Uh, you know, I think like if there's one thing to take away from all of this, is that I think more consideration should go into a game soundtrack because it really does change the experience completely. Um,
It makes it memorable in a way.
yeah.
Good
I
or bad,
also
honestly.
I also want to say one last thing, unless you're gonna talk about it now again.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Sol.
Now you go.
Okay, I'm not 100% sure, so don't take this with the salt with a massive grain of salt because I can't remember 100%. But if I remember correctly, on the EA website when they're talking about East India when USBT, they said they went to Miami to like see the culture and choose a soundtrack.
Mhm.
What part of Miami did you go to? Was it some alternate universe where Zogon? It's called Zogon or something. Where there's got loads of generic things. Some are pretty decent. Some just don't make any sense. And also another thing I want to say, just do Spotify integration, man. If a small company who were made by 3-4 employees from
Oh
their
yeah.
ex-burnout team, why the hell can't they do it now, bro? That would be sick.
Here's the thing. I think the soundtrack did good in terms of I haven't been to Miami, but I bet that's a good representation. The problem is that the game didn't feel like it was a good representation of Miami. You see, you have to merge the way the soundtrack feels and the way the game feels together, right?
Exactly.
If you're trying to go for a certain theme with the game, but the game doesn't hit it, then your soundtrack, which does correctly sound like that theme, is not going to sound like your game or like it should be tied with the game, if that makes any sense.
I
There's a
still think Heat
disconnect.
should have had a more varied soundtrack. Like it didn't have much, didn't have any rock to it.
Yeah, it didn't. He should have just had a generic soundtrack because I really didn't feel like I was playing in Miami. I just felt like I was playing a generic
A fake,
racing
I
game.
feel
yeah,
like
a fake
I feel like I was playing in fucking somewhere where there's. Well, to be fair, that is Miami. This is Hispanic Central.
Yeah, but
Like,
here's the thing.
It's not uniquely Miami. It's like, bro, I could be in Spain.
You
fucking
can't
Brazil.
just copy paste some
I
palm
think they're
trees and
pandering too much to one part of culture in there. They're not looking
Yeah,
at
they
the whole
are.
yeah.
broad spectrum, which is a
It
bit.
turned to too much to one part of culture. They didn't specify which section of that culture it was. Not like the Miami side of that. It's more like, bro, you just put like Brazil and like Colombian music.
If the game
Yeah,
was set in
it's
Brazil, it probably would work a lot more. Wouldn't it?
Actually, maybe. And you want to know, like, an honest opinion, I don't think Need for Speed has ever done an amazing job at making me feel like I'm racing in a certain location. I like Most Wanted 05 is supposed to feel like some New England areas, and I can see that with parts of the color palette and like some of the
Yeah.
autumn
It
textures
should,
and
yeah.
stuff like that. But it doesn't make me feel like, oh, I'm racing like up there. Just makes me feel like I'm racing in Rockport or Rosewood or
Yeah.
somewhere. You know,
But do you know?
but it had its own identity. That's the thing, right? It felt like its own thing. Carbon's map felt like its own thing. 2015, it didn't feel like I was racing in LA or California even. It made me feel like I was just racing in some generic place, but it felt like its own thing. Like it felt like Fortune City, or no, what was it called? Ventura Bay, right?
We don't talk about that cursed city.
Yeah, like they've never been amazing at making me feel like I'm racing in a specific area. So they should instead stop making the soundtrack try to seem like that and instead make the soundtrack feel like what you feel when you're playing the game. That's what Carbon did. Carbon's soundtrack doesn't feel like it's from a certain area. It feels like it's in Palmont City, somewhere that
I
doesn't
never even
exist.
thought of that as a separate area. I just always thought of it as Palmont.
Yeah, it's because Need for Speed has never been fantastic at making you feel like you're racing in a particular area unless you're like in Pro Street where you have racetracks in specific places or The Run, which is supposed
What
to take
about
place across the
what
US.
do you think of the run? Because obviously that's based in real life, and if I remember correctly, each kind of area has a different ish music.
You see,
Uh,
my good friend, as I discussed in either the last one or the one before that, the episode before that,
yeah, he played the Ds.
I only played the 3DS port, so and I don't remember a whole lot about it. So yeah, That's that
Probably for
really.
good reason.
Oh man. All right. This has been going on for a while, but I think we kind of if you guys want to add in anything else real quick, go ahead. But if not, I think that is a good representation of what we think about the things we talked about. So, I'll be sure. I hope if I forget to link Jake's pre-race cutscene concept, yell at me in the comments. I really do want people to see it because I really do think it's good. And obviously, I talked about like my feeling of how the reaction to it and whatever. But yeah,
Yeah, that's just a banger.
yeah,
I
but
got said I watched it just before. I was like, oh,
it's
yo, once
yeah,
again,
yeah,
like
no,
there's
it
more
actually
issues
is.
to get to, but fuck, put that on the
Yeah,
list of things you could add.
yeah, like again, for me personally, it wouldn't be like high up there in the things I would add. But
Yeah, neither,
again,
but like,
as we talked about, I have like certain specific things that I want in the series, and that might not happen. And honestly, that's completely
my
okay.
thing is, I'll always throw a thumbs up if I see a feature implemented. If
Yes.
it's good, even if there's other things, I'll be like, yo, that's good.
Yeah.
But also, please fix this other shit, please.
Yeah. Like seasons. I
So you put a
initially
band-aid on it, but the wound's still open.
seasons doesn't change the fact that I'm not racing for any reason. You know, like, but again, that's we already I guess said what we needed to say. Please check out the concept though; it's really cool. That would actually be really cool to see in the upcoming games, regardless of what I've said about it. But yeah, really cool concept. And on that note,
Those pre-race, that pre-race cutscene is better than fucking the shit little fucking intros they had in Heat.
yeah, yeah, but is it really harder? Is it really hard to beat Heat's
Fuck
pre-race?
no.
No, it's not.
Fuck
So,
no. It's we
dude,
pan different shots.
why is the frame rate go to like 22 on my high
Yeah,
end
why is
PC
that?
every
It
time?
dips.
All
It dips for me on that
right.
cutscene, but then it's like back to 60 stable once I'm racing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Man, if every episode I just keep on going on and on about Heat, I can't help it.
I don't want it.
I don't
I don't
want
want
to.
to. I want us to do one episode where it's a funeral service for Heat. There it is. It's done. It's
Guys,
over.
that will become a very Would you choose to cremate it or bury it or?
If you ask me early enough, here's the thing. It could have been saved. It could have been saved, but now,
That's gonna be better life.
yeah, no, it's. And I think on that note, we will see you guys all in the next one.